Now, just a little bit of theory. I have explained a little bit about that in my other course, Peace and Conflict Studies. I will return to it here in this context of unificationism and the role of women to explain what the age of women represents today, really based on history, a history that you generally know very roughly, but this is more precise and actually quite fascinating. It's a typology, as we call it, that was created by a woman, Prudence Allen, who is still alive, a university professor. And it's fascinating. It's thousands of pages, but the idea is very important. She identifies essentially three types of ways people have been looking at women and men, their respective roles historically. The first one is called sex polarity. So it sounds nice, two poles, South poles, North pole, men, women, equal, complementary. But in that case, it means one is on top, the other one is at the bottom. Men and women are fundamentally different and they are fundamentally unequal. Man dominates, women are there to listen and to obey. So that's something that we have very much still in Afghanistan today, again, and much less visibly in many other countries, and to some degree everywhere still, even though very few people would say that today. In the United States, you don't say that. You don't say men are superior to women and they're there to lead, women are there to follow. You don't hear that. Even this administration will not say that, even though there was some reversal of some developments that took place. It's not anymore. But in concrete reality, there's still some of that left. The second one is a very tricky one because it looks also harmless. Neutral position. Sex unity and sex neutrality, I cannot go into the specifics, but it says, well, we're all human beings. We're not that different. So essentially, we are the same. And that's all we should. We don't need to pay attention too much to the fact whether you're a man or a woman. And for certain things, it's correct. A vote is a vote, now that both can vote. And when you say this candidate had 80 million votes, that one had 76 million, nobody is trying to find out whether men or women who voted. Yeah, statisticians, they look at that because they want to know, whose vote should I focus on more next time if I want to win? But essentially, it's a number that counts, and man or woman are totally irrelevant. In front of the law, same thing. You murder a man, you murder a woman, same thing. And I think I've mentioned these things maybe in the past, but in reality, for much of history, when you said human being, you meant man. And actually, for a long time, humankind was called what? Mankind. But when you said mankind, did you mean only men? No, everybody knew it's men and women, but you still said mankind. You see, when you thought of a typical human being, you saw a man, usually. And then there's also women. So it's a very tricky way in which humankind was always perceived to be essentially male, even though it was understood that it's also female. And then you have the third possible look, which is sex or gender complementarity. Men and women are different. They're not identical, and their difference is relevant. Nobody says they're identical, but the neutral position says they're not identical, but it doesn't matter. And what's essential about them is identical. The third view is we're fundamentally different, but of equal value. Men are men, women are women, they're fundamentally different, but they need each other and they're of equal value. To which my question is, that sounds good, right? And I'm sure that all of us feel, yeah, that's the right one. How do you explain what equal value means? How do you explain equal value? It's very difficult, very, very difficult, especially if you say that they are different and so their roles are different. So how can you compare the value of two different roles? In unificationism, we have this understanding that God is our heavenly parent. He's both male and female. He's our father and our mother. So immediately you have this understanding that man represents the masculine part of God, women the feminine part of God. So that gives a strong sense of identity, equality, because my wife is not just a woman, she is God in a way. She's the manifestation of God, just like I am. So I cannot look down on God, right? So we have this theological foundation of understanding that men and women are fundamentally equal. But in everyday action, activities, and attitudes, how you relate to each other, how do you express that? When one does certain things and the one does certain other things. Or should we all do exactly the same thing? But then we have different bodies. A man cannot give birth to to children. A woman can. So there are many things that make it very complicated. And I think it's important to know that. So if you look at the words of both Reverend and Moon and Dr. Hahn, it's very difficult with the changing terminology. You can see that they mention all these three. That's true mother. Chauvinists, male chauvinists, I mean people men who think that men are superior, assert that men are destined naturally to assume the superior position, and men and women are designed for certain roles that they are meant to play. Their theory, the chauvinist theory, is that men and women are born with different natures, and that accordingly their roles also differ. But don't they differ? They believe that men and women naturally assume the superior and inferior position. So they're not just different, but inferior, superior, and inferior respectively in terms of identity and status, and that men are established as the superior. So that's clearly sex polarity, different. And I believe that feminists until now primarily have been responding to this view. They have tried to secure an equal status with men in all respects by imitating them and assuming the same roles as men. That is what we say sex unity or sex neutrality. They have tried to say, well, we are exactly the same. In the process, you lose what makes us unique. So it's actually, things become poor. I mean, the reality loses some of its richness. Man cannot be truly man, women cannot be truly man. If you make that a universal principle. Further to that, there's also reverse sexual polarity, saying they are very different, but women are superior. With feminism, you have that sometimes. That's the continuation. In spite of their efforts, complete gender equity could not be achieved. This was because they did not know the essence of the problem. The fact that the role of women and their inborn nature differ from those of men does not mean that the value of women is less than that of men and that their status is inferior. The unhappiness of women stemmed from not realizing their preciousness of their God-given original nature and role. But it takes time and experience to discover what makes you truly who you are. Our continental president of the unification movement, Damien Dunkley, in North America, recently in his sermons, weekly sermons, has been insisting very much on the fact we have to discover our identity. When I know who I am, I feel confident because I'm the Son of God. Not the only one, but I'm the Son of God. So nobody can look down on me, and especially not myself. So if a woman realizes I'm the daughter of God, then you can be confident. You cannot prevent other people from doing stuff to you, including putting you in jail. That happens to the very person who speaks here. But that doesn't take away your assurance, your self-confidence, and your sense of identity. So, but that it's a fight when you live in a world where everybody, the whole environment, and all of history tells you otherwise. And believe it or not, the same is true for men. Men have had a fake identity. They thinking they are superior to women, but in a way that actually has nothing to do with genuine value. So it's a work towards that has takes time, enormous amounts of time. And I believe that even in our unification movement, we are still far from understanding the reality of what men and women are and should be in public life, for instance, and otherwise. We are still very much at the beginning. We have an understanding, but it's very superficial, I believe. Anyway, problems arose from the fact that many women forgot they possessed what they possessed and tried to imitate the nature and the role of man, as if men were the exemplars for women. Women have to become like men, then they make it. But a woman can never be a man, right? Neither can a man be a woman. So that's an emphasis on what should be, which is sex complementarity, each one representing one aspect of God and one aspect that the other needs. And for decades, I remember hearing Reverend Moon say, man absolutely needs woman, just as woman absolutely needs man. And man, why is man born? Man is born for the sake of woman. Woman is born for the sake of man. That even ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle understood that. Woman is born for the sake of man. Why? Because man is greater than woman, and what is smaller, of lesser value, has to serve that of his greater value. That's exactly the opposite of what Jesus said, by the way. You have to serve. Your Christ came to serve. If you are greater, if you really are, you are there to serve others. So the understanding was there in Greece, ancient Greece, philosophy was quite off on that point. Anyway, I continue. This is kind of a summary by Dr. Hakshahan of her position on the gender question. Women are the individual embodiment of truth, representing one of the two natures of the incorporeal God, who possesses yin and yang in both external form and internal nature. Therefore, women are not in a competitive relationship with men, who represent the other side of God. Women are not the assistants of man. Elsewhere, she says, any more than men are the assistants of women. They are interdependent partners who make the world whole. When God created man and women, God established them as ideal counterparts for each other and made it so that they can become one through true love. From the perspective of true love, women are the perfect object partners of the love of man, and in regard to their value, men and women are absolutely equal. The fact that the natures of men and women are different does not pose a problem. Those differences are factors that bring on the stimulation of love. Now, when you look at feminism, because if you are in the age of women today, it has something to do with the birth of feminism. At the beginning of the 19th century, feminism appeared, or there were women who fought for the identity of women and the right of doing same things as men and sometimes as doing things differently, but not submissive to men. These women have existed as long as there has been a history. I've already spoken about Hildegard von Bingen, that was 1,000 years ago. And there have been many other women, but they were isolated cases. But a movement challenging society to give equal roles to men and to women as it does to men, in particular, at the beginning, the right to vote, as simply as that. That started essentially 100 plus years ago, 1900s and so on. And around 20 years, I forgot the exact date, into the 20th century, in the United States, women were given the right to vote. And the story, as the story goes, it was 50-50 in Congress, the vote was 50-50, until one of the men who was actually opposed to giving the right of votes to women got a call from his mom who told her, please, and he changed because of his mom's influence. That is very important. Women have always had a very hidden but very influential role and a very strong influence on men, and sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way. How many kings have committed unspeakable crimes that go back to the influence of a woman, their mistress or their wife? Uh, and how many kings and presidents have done great things because their wives encouraged them to do so, like Eleanor and Roosevelt and FDR. So it goes both ways. So women have always had a hidden role. Why? Because fundamentally we were created that way. So even though fallen society oppressed women and indirectly men in becoming truly what they're meant to be by making them into something fake, um, still in an underground way, this has always been present. In the Catholic Church, the Pope is a man, Jesus is a man, the Pope is a man, the cardinals are men, the bishops are men, the priests are men, everybody is man. When you go to a Catholic Church, who do you go to? The Virgin Mary. The hearts of people is with Mary. There are more candles, votive candles in front of the statue of Mary than even in front of Jesus' statue. So invisibly, it's there. But the question is, it has to become not just something that deep inside is there and appears here and there, but not officially. It has to be accepted generally. That has been the movement of feminism. Equity feminism, there are many kinds of feminism. Equity feminism is, the right to vote and this kind of thing, has achieved great things. Then you have radical, I'm not going to go into all of them, it's also more for the other cause, radical feminism, ecofeminism, I don't need to explain that, black feminism, Marxist feminism, and then the notion of intersectionality that goes with black feminism, meaning you can be, if you're a woman, you are in an inferior position. You have to fight for your rights. If you are black, you have to fight for your rights, right? If you are gay or LGBT, you have to fight for your rights. And if you are in the third world or the global south, as we say today, you have to fight for your right because you're being oppressed by the former colonial powers. If you are a lesbian or LGBT woman who is black and lives in the third world, you have all four come together, that's intersectionality, all four come together. Then you have to fight even more. So it's, you claim rights. And in The Mother of Peace, Dr. Hakshahan speaks of the feminist movement that erupted in the West, because it started in the West, that's a fact, could not but degenerate into a one-note movement, blaming men for all problems. That's the fist. A man ought to be blamed for many problems, but not only. And plus, even if somebody deserves blame, blaming the person is not usually going to be very helpful. Just say, right? And that doesn't go just for women and men, it goes for everything. So that leads us to one of the most common slogans of unification movement: the logic of love versus the logic of power. Or it's not just specifically our movement today, and specifically Dr. Haq Jahan and Women's Federation for World Peace. This has been constantly out there. Women represent the logic of love versus the logic of power. Which is good, which is bad, I don't need to tell you. I read. Because most of human history was filled with war, revolution, fighting, oppression, domination, conflict, and violence, the masculine logic of power made sense because it deals with that. And masculine ideologies dominated. The present age is different. The world today is calling for peace, reconciliation, compassion, love, service, and sacrifice. It is an age in which our current problems cannot be solved by the masculine logic of power. There is no longer any need for ideologies that oppress humanity. We all agree on that. In this age, we need to solve problems and straighten out the direction of history by the feminine logic of love. Now, these are the words of Dr. Haq Jahan, so I cannot challenge them. I don't want to challenge them. But if you read them just as they are, I would say out of context, it pretty much means men are evil and women are good. Is that what Dr. Han wants to say? No, she just said the opposite before. No, feminism, many forms of feminism are doing just that. They blame men for everything. That's not the point. The point is to see what has reality been until now. It has been dominated by men, and men, what have they done? They have fought. When you see somebody in the military, you see a man. There's also women in the military, but essentially it's a man's thing. And it has not worked. So now women need to find their rightful place in society as the complement of men, just like the men are the complement of women, that has something else that men don't have, and that includes motherly love, which is soft, gentle, caring, etc., without necessarily being oppressed because of that, because men love to have women who are gentle and caring to take advantage of them. So bringing both together, feminine and motherly love, reconciliation, care, but with the authority and the respect and the dignity they need to have, not all that in order to be abused and used by men to fix the problems. After men kill everybody in battle, then women come, the Red Cross sends their women to take care of the wounded, or, the nurses in every war and so on. It's good, but that's not enough. Women should be in a position where they can determine how things go together with men, never alone, but together with men. And then we have hope for humankind. So this is to make a point, and also to indicate that just like women could never find their role, men, they thought they had their role, but it was not really the role of a man. I'm moving towards that. That's the logic of power, right? We have seen that for those who took the course on peace studies, peace and conflict studies. These are the theoreticians of war. Sun Tzu in ancient China and Clausewitz in Germany. They are the ones that, they were generals, but more than that, they were people who created uh, the theory of strategy, essentially the theory that shows uh, kings, essentially, or leaders of a nation, how to win a war, how to become powerful by fighting. And they are world famous. They're still being studied at West Point and other military academies in the world. But their point was be strong and win by being stronger than the other guy. And how you do that? By killing him, by having a stronger military. Now, if that reminds you of something that you have been seeing around you these days, I can't help it. But anyway, that is the way things used to work. Uh, peace studies, peace and conflict studies try to show that's not the way it works, because this way, basically, in the end, everybody dies. And everybody is married. Even if you don't die yourself, you are on you stand on a pile of rubble. So that's not the way it works. The logic of power. What works is the logic of love. Now, I'm going to, why did I say that men have not really been themselves? Well, once Eve had united, and that's from the Divine Principle, Exposition of the Divine Principle. It's a very interesting book. Once Eve had united with the archangel through their illicit sexual relationship, she stood in the position of the archangel with respect to Adam. When you fall away from God, then you no longer have the peace of being with God and having the confidence of your identity, which is one of true love. And you seek to compensate that by dominating through power. And so that's what Eve did. You can take this literally or as an allegory, but in any case, that's the story of the fall in the Bible, and there are similar ones all over in all religions. Eve then seduced Adam, and she became like the archangel to Adam. She dominated Adam. Thus, Adam, who was still receiving God's love, appeared very attractive to her, and seeing Adam as her only hope for returning to God, Eve turned to Adam and tempted him, dominated him, playing the same role as the archangel had played when he had tempted her. And then when Adam united in oneness with Eve, he inherited all the elements Eve had received from the archangel. And the archangel's nature became man's nature. So I cannot elaborate too much on that, but just as women have not been truly allowed to be themselves in history, men have not been. And the way men have been dominating women has not been as men, but as fallen archangels who use their power, but don't really have the heart of a man. And that's why today the age of woman is not just for the sake of women, it's the age in which women can take their rightful position, and then men gradually can discover who they are as well. It's a rebirth of both men and women. And all the bad stuff about women, about men, will also evaporate. Actually, even Reverend Moon has said at some point in 92, at the time, just after he founded Women's Federation for World Peace and kept emphasizing that now is the age of women. He is a man, so what should he do if now is the age of women? That means now is the age where women have to take their rightful place before everybody, both men and women, can take their ultimate rightful place as men and women. children of God together and parents, true parents themselves. If that's now the age where women have to take their rightful, then he is a man, he should support women. He should not put himself in a position superior. That's what he did. He said, I'm playing the role of the archangel who serves mother. I discovered that. I didn't remember seeing that until a few years ago. An archangel means a spiritual being who is there to serve human beings. And so men in this world have to learn to serve women as somebody who is superior on the level of heart before they can be reborn themselves. And ultimately, husband and wife and husband serve each other. But Reverend Moon himself spoke of him in that way. And he was, no matter where True Mother was speaking in the world, where he was at home in New York State, follow by internet her speeches. And sometimes it was like 3 a.m. in the morning. For him, he followed all the time, very humbly following his wife. So he showed that kind of an example. It was wonderful. So how can men rediscover their true value and become also people who can work for peace? It's funny, I speak about that now. This is the role of women this week, but that's also part of it. Because the role of women is to give rebirth to men. Men, that is now not unificationism. That is what some feminists say. Men at the highest stage of their spiritual development display maternal qualities. That's something I heard in a Women's Federation for World Peace webinar. And this was a university professor in Korea, a female, a Korean lady, who said that. In a way, it might be true that a man should also have maternal qualities in the same sense, in the same way as women should also have masculine qualities. You know, we both have both, just not the same quantities, if you will. But if you read that literally, it means that to become really great, and that's how it was meant, men should become like women. So that goes a little bit in the direction of, again, of reverse sex polarity. Women are superior to men, and the best men can do is to become like women. But Chopin's position is, although the world has said that had received the fallen archangel's lineage had continued up to that point, from that day in 1960, Chopin's blessing, the lineage of the original Adam and Eve began to take root centered on God's love. Original Adam and original Eve. That means both in their original way and unique way. Now, the last two slides, there's some difficulty to that. And that's why I said initially, I don't think we are quite there yet in the unification movement, in spite of all that beautiful theory. A quantitative assessment done with statistics or assessments are easier than qualitative assessments, the so-called apples and oranges. But the former can confirm the latter's intuitive insight. In terms of the role of women in peace making, peace studies, there are statistics that clearly show, for instance, that if women are included in peace negotiations, and not just included serving coffee or maybe sitting at the table to deliberate, but then not part of the decision-making body. No, if they're included from A to Z, and including the final say in making the decisions, if men are included in these negotiations, the peace treaties that are made last longer on average than if women are not included. So that's scientific. You can see scientifically, it's not just opinion or the feeling, oh, women are motherless, so let's include them. It'll be certainly good for the outcome. No, statistics, science, it works. Yeah. Women's inclusion definitely leads to better results. And it makes sense, but it can be proven. It confirms the intuitive insight that people usually have that women will be helpful in creating lasting peace, not just a quick peace you make because you're tired of fighting, but you already plan the next stage of the fight. But then explaining how and why is very difficult. Finding the words, comparing two different things and saying they are the same value, but they are different. You have to figure it out. You can say certain things, well, women give birth to children, so they are closer to their children, so they naturally care for them more than men. So that's why they are more interested in peace. That's true. But a father who has a child, do you think a father in his right mind, a father who embodies really what it means to be son of God, doesn't care for his child like the mother does? So in the world of restoration, women have this very special role, but it shouldn't be their only prerogative. It should become the ownership of both. So as a conclusion, slogans and theory can only do that much. We need to discover the way back to how things were meant to be in substance. And to do it in substance, we have to do it through our lives. And it takes hard work and it takes time. So that's my contribution today, just the way I see it. I try to just speak from my heart with, of course, some preparation. We need really to discover who we are. And at this time, we live in the age where women come up and become truly who they need to be. And so they can participate and then can give to the world what only they can give. And that's absolutely necessary. And it should be done from a position of dignity and authority, just like men. Otherwise, they will only be used and abused. It doesn't work. So that is an incredible insight. And unificationism pushes very much into that direction, which is already taken by peace studies, but very quietly and not so much, that women should be involved. And then, if these women are part of blessed marriages, couples, where they receive the love that originally man is meant to be able to give to women, as well as giving that love to the man, then there will be a potential for peace that has never existed before in humankind. That's the point of this week, I believe. And you will discover more in your readings. Thank you for your attention.